What is happening, everybody? Welcome in tonight. We're going to have a fun show. I know it's been a little while since we've done one of these lives, but I thought tonight I had a good topic to talk about. I've got an amazing guest who's going to be joining us to talk about it. As always, as I'm getting started, one of the things I always love to do as we're starting the show is take a minute, go over to the comments, and just tell us, where are you watching from tonight? Where are you joining in this evening? I'd love to find out where my visitors and viewers are watching from. And we're going to talk tonight about some fun stuff. We're going to talk about insurance. I know, really exciting subject, but there's a lot of questions that come up on this topic on a regular basis. And so I figured, after some of the craziness that we've had the past few weeks, it would be good to bring in an expert once again. We've had her here before. You all love her. You ask me all the time, when are you going to bring her back? When are you going to bring her back? Everybody asks me all the time, when's Terri coming back? Jeremy, please bring Terri back. There she is once again. Welcome back in, Terri. So everyone, I'd like you to meet Terri Branson. She is with WeInsure Advocates here in Myrtle Beach. They are a local insurance broker that is awesome to work with. I send all of my clients to Terri, tell them all, just call Terri. Just call Terri and she'll handle it. She will take excellent care of you. You guys, what kind of insurance do you guys do? You do homeowners, you do auto, what all do you do?
We do homeowners, of course, rental properties, condos, but we also do autos and golf carts and boats and personal umbrella and small commercial, like if someone has a little office or if they have a hair salon or a contractor needs general liability. We do all of that.
Very, very cool. Yeah. So if you guys have questions about insurance tonight while we're going through the show, do me a favor, drop them in the comments section, and we will definitely discuss them. I'm going to move this over here because Terri, we've had a little bit of craziness start to this year. Would you say that's kind of an accurate statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably first and foremost, there isn't probably any place across the country that hasn't heard about our wildfires.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, well, I'm thinking even before that. Let's go back a little bit further. We had snow.
Yes.
Folks, we had snow here at the beach, close to 6 inches in my neighborhood, where snow actually lasted for more than till lunchtime. It was around for like 3 days.
It stayed so cold.
It was crazy. My my youngest, who's now 10 years old, has seen snow like 3 or 4 times in her life. And this is the first time that it's actually lasted past lunchtime where she could go outside and play in it. The problem is we didn't have any of the correct equipment or gear to handle it.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you have that same issue?
Well, I didn't because my kids are older, but yeah, I did for myself. I wasn't sure I had the right stuff to wear to go outside.
Chelsea's joining in tonight from Myrtle
Hey,
Beach.
Chelsea.
Welcome in, Chelsea. We'll see if some others show up here. Yeah, we didn't have anything. Luckily, our neighbors that live like two doors down, they moved here from Washington and Utah area. They brought one snow shovel with. And so they were like the cool kids on the block, letting everybody borrow their shovel to fix and clear out the driveway to make room for it. So it was kind of crazy.
That's funny.
Yeah. So we had that. We then recently had the wildfires, which were kind of crazy. I shared on the channel a quick update, and so let me kind of just expand on it a little bit for those who might be joining in on my community tab. I live in the Carolina Forest area. There was wildfires that took place here in Carolina Forest about 2 weeks ago. It happened around 11:30 to 12 o'clock at night. My wife and I are getting ready to go to bed, and I took the dogs down to put in their crates. And when I went down the stairs, I saw blue lights everywhere out my windows. Like, what in the world's going on? So I walked out the front door, looked down to the right. There were 3 or 4 fire trucks down there. And I went upstairs and told my wife, and I said, we might be getting an evacuation here soon. And literally 2 minutes later, the text message came through saying that we were given a mandatory evacuation in the farm and to get out. And not even 2 seconds later, comes on the front door. Go open it up. Please evacuate at this time. The winds have shifted. There's potential that it could come here into your neighborhood. And so I loaded the kids, the wife, the dogs, all up in the van and came over here to my office, which was so much fun.
That's not really where anybody wants to spend the night.
No, other agents in our office that live in our neighborhood, they went to the Publix grocery lot and sat there with their dogs in the truck all night long. So we had a wildfire that came through the area. Terri, what can you tell us about the wildfire? What do you know about it?
Well, I know it's not completely out yet, even though we did get some rain this weekend, but not enough. But I will say I'm really proud of the Horry County first responders because they got it under control, and a lot of it contained fairly quickly, even under really bad conditions. We had a lot of wind and it was super dry, so they did really well. On the insurance side, what we had were a lot of insurance companies understanding what was going on with the fires and said, well, wait a minute, we don't want to write any new coverage. And they would rattle off several zip codes. Of course, the 29579, which is all about Carolina Forest, 29526, that eastern part of Conway. So we did have a little bit of a hold up in some cases with companies not wanting to write insurance, of course, with the fires bearing down on certain neighborhoods. So made kind of for interesting work.
Yeah, so that fire started on a Saturday afternoon, and it's funny. My wife and I were doing yard work that day, and we were trimming our crepe myrtles, getting them ready for the springtime. So, you basically go and cut off all the dead branches on the crepe myrtles so that they can prune and come back fuller and more vibrant and blah, 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 blah. So we'd done all that, and I said to her, so we'll just put it in a pile on the side of the house, and, we'll let it dry for a couple of days, and then we'll throw it in the fire pit and burn it up. Little did we know that Horry County was already under a burn ban when this was taking place.
A lot of people didn't know.
But there was a lot of high winds that day, and over in Covington Lake area. That's why it's called the Covington Drive fire, because that's where it basically started. Someone was burning in the backyard, walked inside for a few minutes, and the flames, off they went. And it went from her backyard to an acre, to 2 acres, to 10 acres, to 200 acres, to 400 acres, all the way up to 2,059 acres. And it was crazy how fast it grew, because I watched it on Sunday go from 400 to 800. And then the next day it was up to 1,600. And then right as it got to around that 2,000 mark, it started to really slow down. And amazingly, the Horry County Fire and Rescue was able to do an amazing job to keep it from no total losses of houses, no major damage. I mean, some houses had some siding melted off of it and those kinds of things, but overall, no total loss of house, which just blows my mind.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah, it did. So let's see. We have some people joining in here. Herb says, "Hey, Jeremy and Terry, I'm in New York City, but own a second
New
home in
York
Surfside.
City.
Welcome
I'm
in,
a
Herb. If you
Shenango
have
County girl myself out in cow country, New York.
There you go. If you have questions, Herb, you want to know about insurance and things here in the area, Terry's the one to ask. Also, Josh is joining in. Welcome in, Josh. If you have questions as a new homeowner in the area, first time homeowner, this is the person to ask on it. All right. So, Terry, I brought this up. I want to show. Let me figure out here if I can get the right button. There we go. We're going to pull this up. So, here is what is going on with this right now. And, this is the one I want. Yeah. So, Horry County Fire and Rescue. Oh, no, wait, no, I'm sorry. It's in this tab. Here we go. Here is basically where that wildfire took place. And up here at this end, this is the farm at Carolina Forest for those of you looking. This here is Waterbridge and Summerlin and all of that. And then you have here is Avalon, Covington Lake, Spring Lake, and Waterford Plantation. That are all these through here. And as you can see, as Terry just mentioned a minute ago, this was put up 8 hours ago. The current situation containment has increased to 75%, and the fire remains at 2,059 acres. Heavy rain fell in the area, totals reaching approximately 1 inch across the fire, which is good. Crews will scout the fire today to evaluate the rain's impact on the fire. So here's the thing that's interesting to me, and Terry, I don't understand this. Maybe you do, but we've had lots of rain and they've been dumping buckets and buckets of water on it. How could there still be a fire? And, and what I've kind of understood is that the fire is like almost underground kind of going on. It's weird.
That's what I've been reading too, that a lot of that area apparently on the ground level has a big layer of peat. And so the fire literally kind of gets underneath. It's not really under the ground, but it's underneath the undergrowth there and just kind of simmers away and smokes and smolders, and it's really difficult to get it tamped down.
Yeah.
I'm no firefighter expert, but that's what I've been reading.
I'm not either, but that's kind of the exact same thing that I've heard. So we've had craziness with this. Now, Terry, I know I've had a lot of questions, and those of you that are watching in tonight, if you have questions about this, whether you live in the area and you've been affected by it or not, but a lot of questions about this fire. Everything from because it was started by a person, does that mean we can all go sue them? To hey, my house has smoke in it and has made it hard and I had to rent an air purifier. Can I send that into my insurance for reimbursement? Or I was evacuated and had to stay at a hotel and it cost $400. Can I send that to my insurance? What can you tell us about
It
this?
sounds like you got more questions than we did. We were pleasantly surprised, actually, that we did not have a ton of calls from people who had been directly affected by the fires. But so the first thing I always tell people is on a standard homeowner policy, fire is absolutely a covered peril by your homeowner policy. In fact, it was the very first thing that homeowner and property insurance was created for, was because of the risk of fire. So fire is definitely a thing that is covered. And in this case, there are some folks who had, again, like Jeremy said, nobody lost their home, nobody lost their life, thank goodness. But if someone had a fence burned up or their siding melted on their house, probably covered by the homeowner. However, we always want to take a look at it because every homeowner policy has a deductible. So we want to make sure that our folks are not filing a claim for $1,000 worth of damage when maybe they have a $2,500 deductible, because now you have a claim file out there, even if nothing's paid. And we just don't want to show that claim activity if we can help it, if we understand right up front that the damage is not going to exceed the deductible. So we always are trying to be just conscious of what does the policy say? Yes, covered, but maybe we aren't going to file a claim for it. Smoke is going to be the same way. Smoke is also covered, but we're going to want to dig in and see what was your policy deductible before we just call up the carrier and file a claim.
Yeah, I mean, there's some crazy things that I've seen, and unfortunately, many people had, some really heavy smoke in their house. The areas on the other side of Carolina Forest Boulevard didn't have fire damage, but the way the winds blew most of the days, they had all the heavy smoke all the way from the other side of Carolina Forest down through 501, all the way down through Forest Brook. I have friends that live down in Hunter's Ridge off of Forest Brook, and they said, we came down our steps in the morning and thought our house was on fire because it was that much smoke and burning smell inside it. Now, what was interesting with the way the winds were positioned most of the time through this fire, in my neighborhood, I barely ever smelled smoke, and I was very close to the flame.
That's interesting you should say that because, as you mentioned, the fire started on a Saturday. On Monday, I went out to get in my car to head to Carolina Forest to work, and I live on the south end near Surfside in Deerfield. And it was so thick and smoky, smelling and thick, like thick fog of smoke down in Surfside, that my husband and I said, you know what, I'm going to start that way. But I anticipated that it was going to be worse as I got closer to the fires. And the further north I got, the closer I got, the clearer the air became. And when I got out in the parking lot at the Carolina Forest office, it was like nothing was happening. All of it had been blown further south. So that was really strange and eye-opening. The weather currents and air currents and the wind played a huge role in who even was smelling all the smoke.
Yep, it was crazy. I mean, in our neighborhood, really only 2 days do I remember even smelling it. Now, I smelled it. It might have been yesterday afternoon that I smelled it just a little bit after one of the heavy storms that rolled through. Um, but it was just like, oh, maybe somebody's burning in their backyard, type of thing, because it wasn't that strong. Now, luckily, they did have a burn ban in place. That has, however, been lifted, but people,
I
please
wish
don't.
they hadn't.
Please
Yeah,
don't do
don't
it.
do it.
Just don't do it. We decided basically we're going to load the brush in the back of the car and take it over to the recycling center instead.
Yeah,
So we got a question here for you, Terry.
I
All right.
see that.
So Tonang wants to know, what is recommended coverage for a home, and how do you value a home rebuild cost?
We actually have tools that several of our insurance companies have, which is a replacement cost estimator tool. Back in the day, because I'm old, we used to do these by hand. We had some forms and we would like circle the features of the house and add and multiply everything up. But now they're an electronic tool that we use, and that's part of the reason why if you're working with an agent on my team or really anybody worth their salt, we're going to ask you if we're going to try to take a look online and see what we can see about your house. And then we're going to ask you more details and confirm that with you on the phone. And it's why we ask, like, sometimes I can't tell from the pictures, is that siding vinyl siding or is it plank siding? What kind of flooring is in the house? Is there crown molding or chair rail? Is there a lot of trim carpentry? Because all of those things factor in to how much it would cost to rebuild the house. And we all
Right.
know not every house is created equal, and it's not just about square footage. You can build a small house but have it really decked out inside with custom marble showers and that kind of thing. So we ask about all of those features, and then we enter all that data into our replacement cost tool to try to arrive at an accurate replacement value. Now, that's not an exact science. So we usually try to have a conversation with the customer like, how do you feel about that? Did I describe the house right? Does that sound like an accurate amount? It's just important for home buyers to understand that the dwelling limit that we put on the house is our best estimate at the cost to rebuild that house today. And that might be vastly different from the market value. It could be higher and it could be lower. I've seen it go both ways. It doesn't and probably shouldn't affect what you pay for the house. We're strictly trying to come up with how much should you insure it for, so that if something happens 2 months from now, you've got enough money to rebuild it. That's our concern.
Yeah. While you were saying that, it kind of triggered another question in my head. And I don't know that I saw this one, but this is me asking a question. So my vehicles were sitting in my driveway. If that fire came through and didn't damage the house, but did my vehicle, would that have been covered under? What would it fall under my homeowners, under my vehicle? Where would that insurance cover it?
That's actually a great question, and a lot of people ask. It also came up after the tremendous flooding in Western North Carolina last year because
Mm,
some people lost, their cars were in the garages and the whole house slid, down into the river. Um, Automobiles, pretty much anything with wheels, for the most part, generally speaking, is excluded from your homeowner policy. So even if your cars are in the garage and the house burns or tornado topples the house down on top of your cars, the cars are not covered. They're not personal property with respects to the homeowner policy. You would need to have comprehensive coverage. Some carriers now call that other than collision coverage on the automobile. And that's where you pick up things like glass, fire, theft, falling objects. All of those things are covered by your own auto policy. So in fact, you might have two claims, or if both cars were in the garage, same event, probably one claim, both vehicles. But regardless, it's not a claim on the homeowner policy for damage to your vehicles.
mm. Okay, cool. I just was thinking, I was like, I wonder how that is. All right, we have another question, a couple questions coming in. This is awesome. So they want to know, planning on moving to Myrtle Beach and wanted to know if any communities are 100% out of flood zones. Thank you.
That is such an excellent question. So here's my standard answer to that. Every property in the United States is in a flood zone. The question is, how high a hazard, how big of a risk is flooding in that location? The entire country's been mapped by FEMA. That's why I say we're all in a flood zone. If you are in the flood zone lettered X, I always tell people X is your friend because the flood zone X should be the lowest risk zone for flooding. I say should be because in the last couple of years, 30% of the flood claims across the country happened in an X zone. So I don't want people to be complacent and be like, oh, I don't have to have it. I'm not in a flood zone. Wrong term, friends. And I would tell you further that here along the Grand Strand, if you're looking at properties in Horry, Georgetown County, Charleston County, all up and down the coast, North Carolina is the same way. We are low and flat. And I can tell you that when we get a lot of heavy rain and it comes down fast in a short period of time, that water doesn't always run off fast enough to avoid it filling up the street, jumping the curb. So many of our homes are on crawl, or excuse me, not on a crawl space. They're on a slab. It doesn't take much for water to be inside the house. And that is a flood. It doesn't matter if it comes with a hurricane or a tropical storm, or if it just rains incessantly for 3 days and the ponds can't take it and it's a high tide and nothing can drain. If the water rises from the ground up and enters your house, that is a flood. So I really highly encourage people to carry flood insurance regardless of what zone. So are there some communities where everybody's in an X zone? Yes. Am I still going to suggest that they take flood insurance? Yes.
Yep. As I say to people all the time, our company policy is to carry flood insurance. If you're in a zone that is not AE, you do not have to have it for the mortgage,
Right.
but
Bank's
it
not going
is
to require it.
but it is not going to cost that much to add it on, and it gives you a great peace of mind. I used to live down on the southern end in a subdivision, and it was under construction, the division. And when they went to open up the final phase in the back, the so in these subdivisions when they're building, so people understand, they put in these ponds or lakefront or waterfront property, right? And all those are is their water runoff spaces for the water to get off the road and go into a pond. And usually all of the ponds are connected together. Well, when they built the last section in the back, the final pond in the back was like 4 or 5 inches higher than everywhere else in the subdivision by accident. So when it rained heavy, instead of the water dispersing out to all the ponds and going away, what happened is everything in that back section came to the rest of the subdivision. And so my wife and I, we were renting at the time and had renter's insurance on our house, which if you're renting, get renter's insurance. Don't be stupid. Protect your stuff that way too. But all of a sudden, I look in my front yard and the street is starting to puddle up. And it's growing and it's growing and it's growing and it keeps going up and up and up. And it got up to basically the wheels of our car. We were stuck in. We couldn't get out because there was a little bit of an incline there. And luckily there was, or we would have had water in our house, in our vehicles, and had one heck of a mess. But it was up to our mailbox. So 3, 4 feet high in the middle of the street. So, and then they fixed it, air quote fixed, right? And then they said it was done the second time by a beaver that built a dam in the pond.
We still have wildlife here, friends.
Mhm. And so,
In fact, they were here before we were here. So yeah, that still happens. Beavers still get in places and build a dam and cause flooding in some of our neighborhoods. It can happen.
yeah. So it was kind of crazy how this all came about, but that was a subdivision in flood zone X. No worries about it. But there, having flood insurance would have been a really good thing to have. So, anyway, all right, let's see. We have some other questions coming in here. Herb wants to know, tell me about surplus line tax. I'm not in a flood zone, but just 5 blocks to the ocean. Thanks.
Okay. So the flood zones and surplus lines are actually unrelated for the most part. In a nutshell, um, insurance carriers, and I'm trying to, without like taking you to school here, insurance carriers decide how they want to do business in any state. They can do business as an admitted carrier or a non-admitted carrier. The non-admitted carriers are not subpar in any way. It doesn't mean that they have a bad rating. It means nothing like that. It just means that they have chosen to do business that way. One of the benefits to the insurance companies is that they can make rate changes faster. Like if they decided today that as of April 1st, I'm a excess and surplus lines carrier. April 1st, we want to have a 20% rate increase for any new business, and on May the 1st, our renewals are going to get it. They don't have to petition the state insurance commission and wait for approval on that. They just do it. And then, agents who are quoting with them, those are the new rates we get to show customers, and customers can take it or go with another company. In addition, a non-admitted carrier is not called in to pay excess claims out of our South Carolina wind and hail pool. We have a state-run insurance company, I'll say loosely, that does offer wind-only coverage right along the coast. It's a very narrow band. Here on the south end and up into part of Myrtle Beach, that line runs from the beachfront to the Intracoastal Waterway, to give you an idea. Like it's a kind of narrow little strip. It's one spot where you could buy a homeowner policy that doesn't include wind and then buy this separate wind and hail policy from the state. It's our market of last resort. It's not great coverage. But that being said, if we sustain heavy losses in that wind pool and the South Carolina Wind and Hail Underwriting Association pays out more than they have in reserves, they can call on all of the admitted carriers to help pay their shortfall. If you do business as a non-admitted carrier, you can't be called in to pay those claims. So all that being said, an excess and surplus lines policy will break out for customers any policy fee and the tax that they pay to the state. Admitted companies also pay taxes to do business in the state, but they're allowed to roll that up and make it invisible inside their bottom line premium that's shown on the policy. They don't have to break it out for you. So that's all there is about surplus lines tax. It's just part of what the company has to pay to do business in the state, and they have to disclose it to customers, and that's why you'll see it on a deck page. Now, that being said, as far as flood zones, we do have more and more private carriers now who are writing flood. Years ago, in fact, maybe probably not by the time Jeremy and I first did one of these lives, but it wasn't that long ago when the only place to go for flood insurance was the National Flood Insurance Program, FEMA. It was the program that FEMA created. That was the only place to get flood. So we would tell customers too, like the rate you get from me for this risk is going to be the same you're going to get from an agent down the street. The rates are what the rates are, no matter where you go, as long as we plug in the same coverage information and describe the house the same way. And in the X zones, the rates were the exact same if you were in X zone 100 yards from the beach, or an X zone in Columbia, South Carolina, or in Missouri. An X zone got the same rates for these preset packages of coverages. Well, I'm trying to think how many years ago, time flies. Let's say 4 or 5 years ago, FEMA did a big overhaul of the National Flood Insurance Program. Um, X zone rates are now rated individually, and they use a lot of satellite data. So an X zone house in one location might cost $500 a year, and an X zone house for the same amount of coverage in another location might cost $1,400 a year. They all stand on their own merits now based on the actual risk of flooding in that particular area, very particular, right down to the lot. So
Yeah.
we have some of those private flood carriers are excess and surplus ones. So you may see the fees and taxes broken out on an ENS flood policy the way you would on a homeowner policy. But they're all really great coverage, and very often, more oftentimes than not, they're less expensive than the National Flood Insurance Program.
I'm glad you knew that because I was trying to figure out what the heck he was talking about with this surplus. I'm like,
Surplus line.
what kind of property tax is this? Help me, Tara. So good. I wanted to take a second though and jump back a moment because we were talking about flood zone X, flood zone, figuring that out. So one of the things we as agents have to also help, and one of the things I always tell people, if you're in unsure, reach out to Terry, okay? And she can check in about 3 seconds and say the house is in flood zone X or AE. But
maybe about a minute and a half.
Okay, it depends if you have to boot up the computer or not. But one of the things that we have is we have the residential property disclosure, which goes through and is filled out on every single property somebody is selling. And they're going to go through and they're going to answer these questions. And as owner, do you have any actual knowledge of any problems concerning? This is one of my listings that is in flood zone X. We're under contract, going to be closing here in a few days on this house. But I want to go down here and show you. So these questions have increased over the last few years, especially with all the flooding that we had from Hurricane Florence and Matthew and the 1,000-year flood. But in here, as you start to look, you will see it number 23 right here. Flood hazards, wetlands, flood hazard designations, flood zones, or flood risk affecting the property. No, this one was checked no. If I see a yes here, I'm starting to throw a major red flag up. If I see the property is currently insured through the NFIP, or private flood insurance program, if that's checked yes, we're doing it. And then the other one here, has there ever been a FEMA claim on the property? If any of those three are checked yes or no representation, we're not moving forward without talking to Terry. Okay. The other thing I would say is this. Yes, Horry County does have this wonderful website with this wonderful map of the flood zones.
Isn't that helpful?
Yep. But I want to go
Not
and
really.
look at it at a house. And so I'm going to just, I want to check out right here and see if this is at my house. Hold on, man. Let me see. Oh, wait, it jumped too much. I need to get a little, whoa, it's too far. This website is one of the worst websites
Worthless.
in the world. One of the in the world. I can't stand it. So don't use it. Just call Terry.
Just
it's going
call
to
me.
make your life so much easier. Okay. All right. Let's jump back here, man. We have some questions. A lot of questions that came in here. So this is good. Keep them coming, guys. We love it. All right. So Mr. Doodle says, hi. Cute puppy. Let's see here. Thank you. I will definitely look for flood zone X and we'll definitely add flood insurance. Yeah, Terry, if you are in X and you want to add just a flood insurance policy, how much extra are we talking for something like that?
As I was just saying, it used to be though I had a cheat sheet for them even, and this much coverage and your X zone policy will be this. They are all over the place now, but I will tell you that I've written some very recently for as low as $350 and in an X zone, and I've written some as high as $1,500 in an X zone. So it just depends. Each one is rated on its own merits. So I just try to run every single one and take a look. I'll also tell people too, if you're buying new construction in a brand new neighborhood, we need as much information as you can get because the flood mapping often can't keep up with the new 911 mapping for your house. So if it has a 911 address already, if it's 123 bridal street, okay, great. But if it's brand new, we could also use the PIN number from the county. If you can get a latitude and longitude for that site, we'll be able to get a flood zone more accurately and more quickly. So the more information, the better. The lot and block number, if that applies, whatever details you can have to make sure we're dropping the pin on the exact right spot to get the correct flood zone. And then it doesn't take us long to quote flood, but it can take 24 to 48 hours to find the correct zone for some of those locations when the neighborhood is brand new.
Yeah, and with that too, Terry, I know one of the things, and we ran into this on a house not too long ago that you and I were working on. The developers sometimes bring in dirt to raise it up if it's in
Yes,
AE to get it to that higher elevation so it can be X. And when that happens, the remapping doesn't get updated as fast. And so
right.
sometimes you might have to wait and get a copy of a survey or something saying, hey, this is flood X, in order to get that. Because I remember we had that clearly on a deal up in Longs not too long ago where it was showing AE and the builder's going, no, 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 it's an X, it's an X, an X. And we're like,
Yes.
it is?
I actually worked on one like just like that today. And what was funny is when I ordered the zone determination, when I looked at the picture that came with the zone determination, it showed the pin right smack in the middle of everything AE. It was all green. But in the written part, it said it was in an X. So I had to go further through it to realize that apparently 3 years ago, they filed for a letter of map amendment, which is quite a process. You don't get it done overnight. It takes weeks and months to get done with FEMA, but apparently the builder had already done that for a bunch of lots in this neighborhood, but the picture of the map didn't reflect it. You had to
Mm,
read further and see that there had been a letter of map amendment for that location. So some of them can be a little tricky. And I will say too, though, I know Jeremy, you generally speaking work with people that are saying like, I want to avoid the flood zone. I don't want to be in a flood zone. But to be honest, in some of the AEs, if the house is built up high enough, if it's on a good crawl space or they have brought in fill dirt or it's on a monolithic slab or any of those things that make it a little higher, a lot of times the flood premiums in an AE are also not really high. I've written plenty of $500 to $600 flood premiums for AE zone properties. Of course, the kicker is then your mortgage company is going to require you to carry the flood, whereas if you're in an X, it's your option. And I know there's a lot of people who are like, don't tell me what to do. So, that's fine too. But just as an aside, like, and being in an AE zone from a financial standpoint for the flood does not necessarily mean, oh, run for the hills, don't look at it any further. If it's built right and up to the standards, the elevation standards that FEMA asked for, then your premiums might not be bad at all.
yeah, for sure. Okay, we got some more stuff coming in. Let's see here. Mr. Doodle says, just tuned in and it's already interesting as heck. Awesome. Chris wants to know, do areas with HOAs more or less desirable to move to? So let me answer it this way, Chris. If you're someone who says, don't tell me what to do, you're not gonna have anyone. I ain't having nobody tell me what color I can have my mailbox. I ain't having nobody tell me when I have to cut my grass or take my trash or do any of that stuff. Then if you're
You
that type
don't
of
want an
person, you don't want to
HOA.
be in an HOA. Okay. But here's what I have found over the years, and I've been doing this now for close to 25 years. What I have found is that historically, neighborhoods that are in some sort of an association where there's rules and regulations to keep a certain level of standard in the subdivision, those homes seem to appreciate at a faster value than those in non HOAs. If you're also someone, though, who says, I like to have things thus and so, and I want to have it just right, and you're going to be upset if your neighbor across the street doesn't, then you might want to consider having that HOA because you can have, and I say this all the time, you can have yard of the month type house where every piece of grass is perfectly 2.75 inches tall. And, there's not a blade out of alignment, and there's everything perfect. But the person across the street from you runs a construction company and they come home and throw all their scaffolding, their ladders, all of their gear in the front yard and just let it sit there for 6 months and it has weeds growing 4 feet up through it. You can't do anything about it. And what that does is when you do decide you want to sell your house, it becomes an eyesore that you've had to look at for the last few years. But now when someone else is purchasing it, they're going to say, "Ugh, people across the street, I don't want to be near that." So there's pros and cons to both sides of it. You have to do what works best for you. Doodle says, LOL. Fly Eagles fly. Go Birds. All right. Oh, here's Mike. Mike's one of my clients. He'll be calling you here soon too, Terri. Mike wants to know, how much of a premium should I expect if I add an in-ground pool to a new build? Currently have an umbrella policy in my current home. Do you offer umbrella policies? If so, do you recommend?
Oh, we got a lot to unpack there. All my
Yeah,
favorite questions.
I'm gonna let you
So,
unpack. I'm gonna take
yeah.
a sip. I'm gonna have a drink. Answer that.
So, Mike, I will tell you that there can be a difference in carriers, number one, in how they cover a swimming pool for its actual value. Now, bear in mind, pretty much we don't expect the swimming pool to burn up, right? And it's not going to be stolen. There are some perils on a homeowner policy which frankly just don't apply to a swimming pool. But here's a couple things that do. If we have wind and hail and a tree is knocked over and it cracks your pool, that would be a covered peril under the homeowner policy. But number one, we want to make sure that we actually have coverage for the pool. Some companies ask us to increase the dwelling coverage, that's your coverage A on the homeowner policy. Some companies ask us to increase that to accommodate whatever dollar amount you spend on the pool. Other carriers cover it as a coverage B, other structures. So as we'd shop, that would be one of the things we'd keep in mind, like which way do we need to accommodate the value of the pool? And we'll ask you, how much are you going to spend on the pool? The decking and things that you put around it might make a difference too. And there might be two things going on. We might need to cover all of the decking, like if you do a paver patio or something, we might need to cover that under other structures and add the pool to the dwelling. Either way, we want to make sure that you've covered the value of the pool so that you are covered for it. Secondly, I always make sure that my customers who have a swimming pool have at least 500,000 in personal liability on their policy, and that in case it's an optional coverage, because I have one company that for whom it's optional, you want to make sure you have swimming pool liability, obviously, right? In case someone gets hurt. I say that because we grew up with a swimming pool in central New York. It was not common, but my parents put in an in-ground pool in our home in central New York, not in the house, but adjacent to the house, and then built a building around it. So when I was growing up, we had wintertime swim parties, and my friends loved to come over when it's snowing and come inside to the steamy pool room. But when my brother was in college, he had a bunch of friends over, and we found one of the guys at the bottom of the pool. And thank God he had not been there very long. They hauled him out and revived him, and he was fine. But my parents had a big wake up call about liability or potential liability when you have a swimming pool. So first, we start with 500,000 liability on the homeowner policy. And then, yes, I highly recommend a personal umbrella. Used to be the kind of thing where people thought they only needed an umbrella if they had major, major assets. But honestly, the way prices have increased and the way litigation goes, I mean, I don't know how much television any of you watch, but for me, like, I can't watch television for more than 30 minutes without seeing 2 or 3 personal injury lawyers on there. Like, they can't wait to go after somebody and find somebody, at fault. Yeah, and you know what? They're not finding the somebody, they're finding the somebody's insurance. So people will sue you for, looking at them sideways, and it doesn't take long to be sued for $1 million now. So I tell people, speak with your financial planner, take a look at what you really do have for assets and savings and investments and everything. Maybe a $1 million umbrella isn't enough. I mean, an average person might need a $2 million umbrella. And in the end, I always think it's better to transfer that risk to an insurance company for whatever it costs, a few $100s a year, than to have it sitting on your shoulders and potentially lose, you have to sell your house or have to liquidate your retirement or whatever in order to pay for a lawsuit. I think an umbrella is really smart. And yes, we do those too.
Yeah, you definitely want to have it. And Mike, like I had shared with him personally the other week when we were writing his offer, to reach out to you directly, because you could talk all about that, all about getting his homeowners, his property, his vehicles, all that good stuff taken care of. So, all right, we got some other questions coming in here. This one here came in definitely looking at new construction because prices are great in the
They
Myrtle Beach
are.
area. Thanks for your help. I'll reach out once we get to Myrtle Beach. Okay, let me pause you 1 second here. Don't wait till you get here to reach out because I'm crazy busy right now and I want to be able to fit you in. So instead, what I want you to do, I want you to go over here to jeremyblanton.com. And when you get there, let me move this out of the way so you can see. When you get there, you will see my calendar. You'll see a book a call right here. You can simply click on a day. So if I want to talk to Jeremy on Friday, I come in here and click, and you can see Friday I have 10, 10:30, and 11 o'clock available. I want to talk to Jeremy at 10 o'clock, fill this information. We can get some kind of preliminary stuff out of the way, get some information started for you. And then as we get ready to have that conversation while you're here, I can get you on the schedule and plan so that we have time to meet up. Because the worst thing is when people call me on a Thursday and say, hey, I'm here for the week. Okay, well, I'm booked Friday. I'm booked Monday and Tuesday. How do you fit in Wednesday at 3 o'clock? Oh, well, we're leaving at 2. That's one of the worst things in the world. But go over here and do it. Also, for those of you who are watching tonight's show, if you have questions about anything related to insurance, just go to your web browser, type in WeInsure. I can type tonight, WeInsureAdvocates.com, and it will bring you right here to Terri's page with her team, and you'll see all their smiling faces there at the bottom, and they will take fantastic care of you with all of your insurance needs. As Terri, as you say all the time, I'm going to run into you in the grocery store. Oh, sorry. We got the repeat there going. Let me get it fixed. There. I'm going to run into you in the grocery store. I want to take good care of you so I can smile at you and be happy to see you.
That's right.
So,
Thank
all
you
right.
for sharing that too, Jeremy. So I did want to point out, like, I have a team, and they're a great team. They've been handpicked. So, and we have worked together so that I can honestly say we all have different personalities, but we work so much alike. So we really want to dig in with each customer and find the coverage that really fits you. And it doesn't matter who you talk to on my team, they're all going to do a great job. So don't feel like you have to talk to me.
Yeah. Great thing. All right, let's see. Some other questions here coming. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you both. My question is, what age of a roof will affect the coverage price?
Oh, Mark, that's such a great question. So, first of all, if the roof is tile or metal, it gets a much longer pass by the insurance companies. So, a lot more years before anybody, looks at it funny. For the most part, we're talking about shingle roofs, which do give some of the insurance carriers a bit of a headache. First, understand that there are there's a lot of different kinds of roofs, but bottom line, there's a 3-tab shingle and there's an architectural shingle. The architectural shingle is thicker, and when you see it go on, the shingles overlap each other, so it looks like it has more texture. A 3-tab shingle, each one will just butt up to the next one, and they are sort of smooth, just very high level. Um, an architectural shingle, most insurance companies will allow for a lot longer than, well, maybe not a lot, for longer, older age than a 3-tab shingle. Right now, we have a lot of carriers who will not accept a 3-tab shingle roof that's more than 15 or 18 years. So there's a lot of folks out there with a 21-year-old 3-tab shingle roof, and they literally have told me, "Oh, it's fine, it doesn't leak." Well, leaking is not the litmus test for whether or not you replace your roof, friends. I'm sorry, but
It's not.
that at that point, those shingles have lost most of their granules. They're brittle. They're dry. They're not going to stand up to anything. So the thing that people don't really like to hear is that part of responsible home ownership is that if you own that house long enough, you're going to have to replace the roof, and it's out of your pocket. It's not replacing the roof because there was wind damage. If your roof is 25 years old and you had wind damage, your roof probably wouldn't have stood up to me coming up there and blowing on it. So it really is important that you maintain the roof and that they got to be replaced from time to time. So architectural shingles, we've got some carriers that'll take those 20 to 25 years, but not as many. So if you want the most competitive quotes from the most carriers, then you want an architectural shingle roof, number one, and you want it to be 18 years or less.
So should I hope for a hailstorm to come so I can get a new one for free?
No,
That that's
no,
that's not good advice.
that's not good advice.
Okay,
Shame
just
on
check,
you.
just checking. All right, let's see what else we got here. Hello, you two, Terry B. Can you talk about how you quote, say, homeowners? Is it price driven or coverage driven or both? I mean, is lowest price always best?
Um, Hello, Tad. Yeah, he knows. I actually did a video on this a couple years ago. Lowest price is not always the best. And when you're on social media, that's what we see a lot. Who's got the cheapest, whatever, fill in the blank? Who's got the lowest price homeowner? Well, lowest price may not give you what you think you have. Lowest price may mean you don't have nearly as much coverage on your contents. It might mean you have deductibles that are way bigger than you can pay for. Might mean that somebody put you with a carrier that's not that great. So we do really try to start with what's important to the customer, what's important to them to cover, and work from there. And if we need to start reducing or removing things or increasing deductibles because of a budget issue, then that's where we will go. But first, we want to. I don't even want to say sell. Like first, we want to advise from a position of what's best for the customer. And sometimes people can get more than they thought as well. So we try to start with here's all the things I would recommend. I included these coverages because I've seen people have to actually file a claim for them. And then again, if somebody needs to reduce that price, then okay, let's talk again. Here's what this coverage does. Could you live without that? Could you manage the repairs out of your pocket if you didn't have the coverage, but something happened? So, lowest price is not always best. And it's really important that we compare all of the coverages, not just the coverage amounts. And I say that because like one quote might have 350,000 on the house and the other quote might have $350,000 on the house, but their deductibles could be substantially different. They could be one could have some terrific endorsements like lots of water sewer backup and personal injury and a lot of mold coverage and maybe animal liability if you have a dog, and maybe the other one has none of that. So the other one seems cheaper and it seems so great, but it doesn't cover all of the things that can occur in your house the way that other quote can. So oftentimes, if there's a big discrepancy, we'll show people a couple quotes. Hey, here's a couple ways to do this, depending on what's important to you, and what are you willing to basically self-insure. Here's a couple of options.
Yeah, and with that, one of the things too, and I know you've done this for clients of mine in the past, is they get a quote from somewhere else, and oh, it's so much cheaper, Jeremy, than Terry's. Why is that? And I'll say, well, before you just take this, let's go back to Terry and have her compare apples to apples and look at it. And I remember one of the time it was, I believe you were quoting, I think for flood insurance, and it was going through some program that you're like, Jeremy, they're not going to insure a paper bag type of thing. And it was like they don't know what they're trying to do here with this. And once you took a few moments to explain to them the difference between the two, and that at the end of the day, I mean, we're trying to protect, guys, our most valuable investment that we have in our lives. Let's be real. And so it's important that we have the correct coverage so that if a disaster happens, if that accident happens, I mean, my gosh, let's just go back to the wildfires a minute.
Right,
We had one here back, what was it, 2009, I believe it was, that destroyed 60 plus houses.
right.
Those people, if they didn't have the right coverage, they were in trouble.
Or if they didn't have enough coverage.
Yeah. So it's really important to do that. So just, if you're looking to get an insurance, reach out to Terry and her team. They're going to shop it. They're going to find you the best options, and they're going to not only do that, but they'll be able to explain it. The other thing that is amazing is that if I have questions, I don't call an 800 number. I call the local number here. Somebody local picks up the phone that's in Horry County, that understands Horry County laws and rules and all of the craziness that we deal with here. Not, oh, well, my policy number is 359B287, and you have to go through 7 different departments to get to the right person. I'll pick up the phone, call Terry. Hey, Terry. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing? Which house are we talking about? Your personal or your investment? Okay, let me pull up 1 second, and we go on to what we're talking about. Terry, quick question for you. This one came up when we were talking about roofs a couple minutes ago in my brain. Part of it's from a discussion we had earlier today when I was in a group of realtors with solar panels. Does that do anything with our insurance? Does that increase it, decrease it, make it more? Does that even affect it at all? What
I
can you tell us about that?
can't believe you brought that up. So, solar panels, the best advice I can give to anyone who either is has them now, or you're buying a house that has solar panels, or you're considering them, is have a very frank and honest conversation with your insurance agent, because not all insurance companies will cover them. Also, a lot of them ask, do you participate in a sellback program where basically, and I don't think anybody's home really does, but I guess it could happen, where your house generates so much solar power that you're selling it back to the power company? Because if that's the case, it rears another like set of 50 questions from the insurance company, because they think it makes it like a commercial risk. It's very odd. But at any rate, not every carrier will cover solar panels on the roof. So again, you want to make sure you've asked the questions, or that you're willing to self-insure those. Um, some people are like, hey, I don't want to spend $2,500 more a year on my homeowner's insurance to cover my solar panels. Okay. As long as you understand going into it that they're not covered, then, I'm happy to write you the one that doesn't. But just have the conversation and make sure you're upfront with it. I don't even mind. Sometimes I will literally like clip some of the underwriting guidelines from one of my carriers and go, here's what it says. I've done that before, where somebody's shown me a quote that someone else had, and I'm like, yeah, that premium looks good, but I know that carrier won't cover XYZ, like in this case, the solar panels. And I'll just like go and snip from their underwriting guidelines. Like, here's what the carrier has to say about it. I'm not making it up. Here's what the carrier says. Those rules are the same for every agent. So do with it what you will.
So I found a house where it might work, Terry, that we would get some back. 'Cause I think
Oh
this
my
might get.
goodness.
Don't you think that would
Solar
work?
farm. It's entirely different.
Oh, okay. So that's not going to work. Okay, never
Not
mind.
gonna work. Not
All
gonna
right.
work.
So let's go back here. We have some more questions coming in. Let's see what we have here. Oh, this is a good one. How much effect does having a home security system have on insurance rates?
I'm glad you asked that, Chris, because if you have one of the ADT guys or whoever, fill in the blank security company, come out, I know that some of them are like, oh, and when you get this system installed, you're going to get a really nice discount on your homeowner insurance. It'll probably cover the monthly monitoring. That is absolutely not true. The last one that I quoted, obviously, it depends on how much coverage you have and all your deductibles and what your total premium is. But the last one I did, I think, gave like a $40 a year discount on the homeowner policy. So it is, by and large, it's not significant. That being said, I tell people, like, if it makes you feel more secure, if you like having the cameras or whatever other features come with, and you just like the security that comes with the security system, then by all means get it, and then send us an alarm certificate and let's get you back whatever is the discount. Like, don't do it because of the homeowner insurance discount, but if you do spend the money and go to the time and effort to have one installed, then by all means get whatever credit you're due on the homeowner policy. They've got to have an alarm certificate, which most of the security companies can provide to you online. Even usually it just has to have the address where the monitoring is, what exactly is monitored. Is it burglar? Is it fire? Is it both? And the date that it was activated. And no, a copy of your invoice for the monthly monitoring won't do. It's got to actually be the certificate that has those things I mentioned.
Yeah, and with that, Terry, I think where this question might be coming from, because I think I might know who this is. A lot of people buying new homes nowadays, they're buying, one of the things the builders are doing to sell it is, oh, you're buying the smart home technology, and ADT is going to come out and install all these things, and they're going to offer you a security system at the same time. And so, they give you the smart home stuff of the wireless door, the garage door that you can open and close from your phone, the wireless
The
um,
thermostat,
thermostat and
mhm.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, from it. And then while they're there setting that all up, they're saying, "Oh, well, don't you want this system? And you need this, and we can do this and do that, and all this stuff." And I know back in the day, it used to be this big thing that, oh yeah, you'd save all this money by having a security system on your house. But from what you're sharing now, that pretty much isn't the case anymore.
It's just not that big a discount. No.
Okay, good. All right,
Almost
let's
every carrier does give some. So as I say, if you have a system, get what you deserve. But it's not don't anticipate it being a big amount.
all right. GTO wants to know, is Surfside Beach a high flood zone not on the beach?
I see a little of everything in Surfside, even off of Ocean Boulevard. The majority of Ocean Boulevard, especially on the beach, is in VE zones, some AEs. But the rest of Surfside is hit or miss. There's a lot of X. There's a lot of X zone in Surfside, but there's also some pockets with some AE zones. So I would say property by property, address by address. We'll check it out. Again, like Jeremy mentioned way earlier, I can run those flood zones as long as it has a accurate address, and especially if it's not brand new address somewhere. And so Surfside is going to be pretty easy. I can run those in like a minute and a half and confirm which flood zone it's in.
Yeah, and I always say this to people, like, it doesn't matter even if if it says this, let's still double check it just for safety. Because I've seen already where in a subdivision, one side of the street's X, the other side's AE. And you may be looking at and talk to the neighbor. Well, the neighbor said it's in flood zone X. We're not in the flood zone. Their side of the street's not. But it's
Right.
your side that you're buying on. And then you get the contract in place and you go through all the stuff with the mortgage, and then you reach out to get your insurance in place and find this out, and you're like, oh gosh, I have all this in this house. You've already figured out where you're putting your furniture, so now you're stuck spending
And
that extra.
the flood zone maps, if you've ever looked at them, flood zones are not square, straight lines. They're curvy. They go in odd directions. So it's very possible that like the back part of a property is in an AE zone and the front is in an X. So that might make a difference in how somebody structures a house if they're building one there, because it's all about, does any part of the footprint of the house is in the higher hazard zone. So again, I would say let's just run them. Surfside's beautiful though. I love Surfside. So in some of those spots, I would say don't even be terrified of the AE. Let's make sure we build up. And I don't mean you don't have to be on stilts. Just make sure we build it up high enough, and your flood premium won't be that bad.
I mean, there you go. There's the quote flood zones of our area.
Kind of hard to tell. Those
Yeah,
maps
I
from the
mean,
county are not so great.
no, they're not great, but it's kind of funky the way everything is done for sure.
Yeah, and they're curvy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they follow along the water lines.
A lot of them do.
Yeah,
And I have to
and
tell people too, like, trust me, just if like in your scenario, Jeremy, where one side of the street, as an example, is in an AE and the other's in an X, I promise you that the water isn't going to go, oh my God, don't cross the line. I mean, water from any of these storms pays no attention to the arbitrary lines that FEMA came up with for these flood
it's
zones.
gonna always find the lowest spot.
That's right.
And the reality, guys, and I share this all the time when I'm meeting with people, and I pull my phone out, and Apple iPhone has a compass built in it, and there's the ability to see your elevation as well. And so like here in our office where I'm sitting right now, I am 30 feet above sea level. 30 feet. If you have a phone at your house, right, have an iPhone by, open up the compass and look at it and see what you are. My guess is if you're not here in the low country, yours is going to be significantly higher than that. So, all right, let's see what else we have here. Tad says, real expert experience matters. Thank you. Herb wants to know military discounts.
Right now, I think I just have one, maybe two insurance companies that give a discount, and it's not just for military. Their question is, do you have experience in the military? So you don't have to be current military. We can send a DD 214, or as a first responder. So policemen, firemen, EMT, they give a discount for any of those. But right now I just have one or two carriers. I wish there were more, but we'll take what we can get.
Here's another fun question that just came in. Mark wants to know, is there fire zones, or say most new developments are pretty sparse when it comes to foliage, but someplace else may back up to a forest?
You would think, and the day may be coming when more locations do a fire rating. I think there is some of that in California now because they've had such an issue with wildfires. But in South Carolina and in North Carolina right now, we don't have fire zones the way we have flood zones. Just that if there's active fires going on, we have some companies that will issue a moratorium, which is to tell us we can't write any new coverage until the fires are out and the area is safe. But nope, we don't have fire zones. It might be smart, especially when it's dry like we've had.
So here's a question that I saw, and this was in one of my local Facebook groups the other day, where they were talking about making your house firewise. And one of the things that they were talking about is to remove, when these developers build these new developments, what do they put on the ground? They don't put a nice mulch, they don't put a nice rock, they put the cheapest thing possible, pine straw.
Pine straw.
Pine straw is ugly, nasty, and extremely flammable.
Highly flammable.
So one of the things that they were saying is make your house firewise by removing all the pine straw. Does that
Just
affect
that
if
one simple thing.
does
It doesn't affect the insurance rate, but I just think it's one of those smart things to do. I mean, there's a lot of things as a homeowner that you can do that help make your house safer in all kinds of ways. So, yeah, removing fire hazards, honestly, I'm surprised that they don't give discounts for having non-flammable landscaping, to be honest. But they don't. But it's in not for landscaping, but when insurance companies do an inspection of your house, one of the things they look at is like areas such as your water heater. Do you have other things that are too close to the water heater? They don't want things that can be there where they might get hot or they might, be damaged by spillover or whatever. They look for those kinds of things, but not the landscaping. And I feel like kind of they should. But yeah, the smarter things you can do is remove flammable stuff from around the
now
foundation.
talking landscaping a minute, this reminds me of something that I remember when we purchased our primary residence we're in now. And you had talked about if you have trees nearby. And my house that I have now doesn't have technically trees, but it has, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, crepe myrtles. And they're about 8 to 10 feet. Right now, they're about 8 feet because I just trimmed everything off of them. But when they're full in bloom and everything's there, they're 15 to 18 feet tall. And I remember you saying to me, well, Jeremy, because these are by your house, they're considered a tree. And so therefore it's going to take your insurance up a little bit for having those nearby.
Actually, so there's a few things about trees and shrubs. We do have an insurance company. I think that's maybe who we were looking at when we were quoting that one, Jeremy. They will give a discount if you have a tree-free yard. And what they're looking for is that there's no
Uh-oh. Did I maybe lose Terry? She might have froze up there, guys. I don't know. But I think what she was saying is we have a tree-free yard. You get a discount with it. Um, Hopefully she'll be back here in a minute. So what other questions do you guys have tonight that you'd like to ask Terry? We're going to probably wrap this up here in the next few minutes. So if you have another question, now is the time to definitely ask that because we're going to probably wrap this up here in the next few minutes. Hopefully she didn't lose internet or something like that. We'll see here. But what other questions do you guys have? Okay, here's one coming in. Mark asked. Let me see if I can answer this till Terry gets back. I have a question for you both since the area is more prone to high winds about your landscaping with stones or rocks, which I would think be projectiles and a hazard in these situations. So, not really, Mark. Is that something to worry about? We have some rocks in the little flower bed section of our house. They're not going to get picked up because they're down on the ground. There's no way for the wind to get underneath them and lift them up. More so with the winds and things we have here, the projectiles you have to watch for are lawn furniture, bird feeders, bird houses. That kind of stuff is kind of more the concern of what you want to pay attention to and be worried about than anything else. Hold on a minute here. My phone. Oh, I just turned my phone back on. Let's see here. I think we're getting some. Let's see if Terry texted me here. things like that are more the concern than things like, um, you know, a rock flying up in the air, those types of things. So I wouldn't be too concerned about rocks, mulch. It's not gonna get airborne and fly through. So yeah. Oh, let's see here. She messaged me. Nope, that's not her. All right. What other questions do you guys have for us tonight that you may want to ask? GTO says, thanks, Jeremy and Terry, for a great show. Thank you for joining in. While we're waiting for Terry to show back up here, let me, one of the things people always ask me is, what's going on in the market right now, Jeremy? What's happening with real estate in the area? And let me just say right now, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty hectic. Buyers are definitely coming. The spring market has sprung, and properties are going under contract pretty quickly. If I were to jump over here to my MLS and give me a moment here to get logged back into it properly. All right, so here we go. Let's bring this up and let's bring up the market stats and see what's happening here in the MLS area right now. So here is sales. Oh, it changed colors. It got fancy for us. Let's see here. So month supply, that's where we always like to start. Here you can see we got up to 5 months in November. And then in December, it dropped to 4.7. And we're now at 5 months again. My guess is, though, in March, April, May, you're going to start to see this trend downward. Oh, hey, I see her back. Awesome. There she is. Let's bring her back in here. There you are, Terry. So welcome back.
Sorry.
It's all good. I decided I would talk about the market for a minute, so you came back in. While you were gone, we'll get back to the market stuff later. You guys don't care about that right now. You want to ask Terry about insurance stuff. While you were gone, you were talking about the trees and that, and then this question came in as well, asking, with stones or rock, I think it'd be projectiles and a hazard in the situations. And what I said is, they're on the ground, they're down flat. I don't really think it's a big concern. I have some in front of my house, and I've never seen them move unless my kids kick them.
Yep, I've not seen an issue with that either, and I haven't seen any insurance companies that are concerned about them.
Yeah, so it's all good. And let's see here. Mark then says, thank you both. Sorry that the leprechaun was messing with my CNY girl, Terry.
I know. My whole computer froze. Everything. I had to hard shut that thing down. That's not fair.
No fun at all.
No
Well,
fun.
guys, like I was saying while Terry got frozen there a couple minutes, is that we're going to be wrapping up probably here in a few minutes. So if you have any final questions that you want to ask to Terry tonight, please do me a favor. Type them in the comments section now. Also, Terry, I'm going to put here, in case people want to reach you, here is a phone number for you, as well as your email address for Terry. You can reach her, and I'll put it up on the screen. There's her phone number and the email address where you can reach her team. And like I said, you can just go to WeInsureAdvocates.com. It'll take you directly to them. They are awesome to work with. They handle the insurance on my vehicles. They handle the insurance on my investment property, on my primary residence, on all of my stuff. They handle the insurance. And Terry's team is just, they're awesome to work with. And the fact that when I need to have a question, I can pick up a phone and call somebody and get a live person on the phone without having to scream, representative, 7 times is always a huge, huge bonus. So, Terry, anything else you want to say to the crowd tonight?
I'll just mention this little sidebar thing, and that is that a lot of times when folks are going through the mortgage process, when they're buying a property, that can be pretty intrusive, and there's a lot of questions, and we have a lot of questions for you, right? Like I already talked about how we ask about all the details of the property, and then we ask you about prior claims, and do you have a dog, and all these other things. So there are plenty of times when someone reaches the point with their lender where there's a debt to income issue, and the lender will call me or someone on my team and say, we need to get Mr. Jones homeowner insurance down in order to meet his debt to income ratio. And my answer is, Mr. Lender, that's not up to you. We've talked with our customer and determined what they need for coverage and what they want for coverage and deductibles and everything, I will have a conversation with my customer. Obviously, we want you to get to closing. We want to do everything we can to make sure that it all works for you at closing. But when you're done and that loan is closed and the mortgage guy gets paid, he's done. He's out of your life. We're not. We're there with you, not just this year for that term, but for as many renewals. And if we have to shop it and rewrite you, like we're here in it with you. We're here during the hurricanes. We're here when there's wildfires. We're here when you wreck your car. We're here for the long run to make sure you're protected. So I'm not as interested in shaving off $10 a month for this debt to income thing as I am to making sure you're really protected. And what I sometimes explain to these lenders is, if Mr. Jones can't swing this extra whatever, $10, $20 a month, how in the world do you think they're going to come up with another $1,000 or $1,500 if they have a claim 2 months from now? It doesn't make sense. So I'm not saying that we won't do whatever it takes to help you get to closing, but we're going to have hard conversations with you about what's your situation really look like and how much can you really afford on the insurance.
That's the difference between a professional and a salesperson, right there, folks. And so that's definitely what you want is the professionals on your side. Here's a question from Herb. How
Sure.
long will
How
it
long
take
will it
to
take?
get a quote? I'm shopping now.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of depends on what the risk is. If it's something complicated, and by complicated, I would say close to the ocean, older construction, maybe unusual occupancy or whatever, then it might take us a couple of days. I've seen some take 3 days if we have to submit them out for quotes. But if it's newer construction, it's not right on the coast, it's going to be your primary or secondary with no rental, pretty clean, you don't have claims, you don't have a Rottweiler or Chow Chow or something that bites, that kind of thing, then depending on how many we have coming in, typically we have about a 24-hour turnaround on our quotes. Now, as I say, last week for me, well, it's for everybody on my team, we kind of got behind and never caught up. So, I think we're caught up today. So once in a while, it might take a little longer, but we'll let you know if that's the case. And if you have some urgent time constraint, then let us know that, and we'll try to bump you to the, closer to the top of the stack.
Here's another question for you. And
Well,
I will
yeah,
answer. Let me answer this one to start.
you go.
Whenever there's the word always or never, I always say we can't always guarantee always.
Nope. I was going to say, I don't have a crystal ball, but I will say that the Grand Strand, really all up and down the South Carolina coast, while we definitely have hurricane history and the insurance companies are a little leery of that, the state has always worked with those carriers, our Department of Insurance, to try to make sure that, we have a sustainable market and that we do have options. And yes, our insurance here is higher than some other parts of the country, but we're not close to Florida yet. If you own a home or have ever looked at homes and priced insurance in Florida, we are not Florida yet. We have much better options than they do in Florida, and for pricing. So I think as far as we can see, we're still going to be in the insurance business.
Well, and here's the thing. Yes, we I would say I'd be more on the yes, we'll always have it. It just might be unaffordable, but we still should have something. It just might be I mean, at the end of the day, Lords of London's still going to be around and they'll just might
Lloyd's
be
is still going
writing
to
it
be
at
here.
15 to $20,000 a year, but insurance will be available, just may
I
not be
mean,
affordable.
yeah, I could see how some of these coastal areas, in the first, say, 5 miles of the beach, that, eventually there may come a time when you got to be pretty wealthy to own a home there just because of the insurance.
Yeah.
Um, we're not there yet, thank goodness. And people are discovering that the weather is still great and there's still plenty of things to do if you're not right on the beach. So I think that the Myrtle Beach area has a lot to offer that way.
Well, and also too, you guys got to think about the pricing. Yes, if you have dreams of being east of 17, where you can walk to the beach every day and do that. I said this and I did a video. It's probably been 4 or 5 years ago. I probably need to do it again. But living in Myrtle Beach is not a vacation. You come on vacation here, and when you're here for a week. You're not working. You have all day to get up in the morning at 9 o'clock, go down and sit on the beach with your feet in the sand till 6 p.m., and then go off the beach, wipe the sand off your feet, go out to dinner and relax, and then cut up the next morning and do it again. But when you live here, you still have to take care of all the day-to-day things that you have to when you're back home.
Yep.
You still have to do the laundry. You still have to do the dishes.
You got
You
to go
still have
get your
to
oil changed. You
you
got to
gotta
get the lawn mowed.
right. You gotta
Go
go
to
to
the
the doctor's
doctor.
appointments, and heaven forbid you're someone who still is working of age, you're gonna have that too. I mean, the reality is I live 15 minutes from the ocean. I go to the beach maybe once every 2 months. My wife goes down maybe once or twice a week, but she goes down for an hour at a time early in the morning, walks on the beach, picks up her shark's teeth, and then goes back home. And so she does. That's what
She
is
goes
her.
more than most residents.
Yeah, she does most. So if you're someone who can afford to live that place, then higher insurance is not. If you can afford to buy the $1 million house.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So anyway, um, Herb says, I'll be in touch tomorrow. And he
We'll
said,
be
thank
there.
you. Thank you to both of you. And, with that, I think that's kind of a good spot to stop tonight. Terri, I appreciate you joining in.
I'm
Thanks for
so
all the
grateful
wealth.
you had me. Thanks to
Thanks for
everybody
the,
who joined in too. That's been fun.
yeah, thanks for the wealth of knowledge that you dropped. Guys, if you have questions, like I said, go to WeInsureAdvocates.com. Reach out to Terri and her team. They're phenomenal. If you're thinking about buying a house and moving down here, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help you. Go over to jeremyblanton.com, book that 30-minute call, and we can discuss your move to the area, making it as smooth and as pain-free as possible. I have a lot of people right now that I'm helping that are moving here from all around the country. In each place, it's a little different. When you're coming from Oregon, it's not an easy thing to just jump here and go. Or like my client from Minnesota, he's like, Jeremy, I can't come 2 weeks in a row, 1 week to do an orientation and the next week for closing. I have to start a job when I get there, and I just put my 2-week notice in. So things like that, we're here to help you throughout the transaction. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach out. As always, thank you for joining in tonight. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor. Give it a thumbs up. Get the bell on and subscribe so you don't miss the next time we go live. I'll bring Terri back again if you guys want her. I'm sure you do. If you guys could do me a favor, though, as we're ending, just in the comments, say thank you, Terri, for all your awesomeness tonight. That would be great. Terri, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As always,
Yeah.
y'all have a good evening. I will catch you later. See ya.
Good night.